At the time when I shot this, it was wintertime in Colorado. Since most of the trails are closed, I'm going to work in the garage a little bit. Planning on building a camping sleeping platform. This is a 2020 TRD Off-Road Premium. I've already taken the seats out of the back, and I've left the carpet and the styrofoam in. Once you take the back seats out, there's a ton of room in the back of this thing. I actually bought this truck specifically for this. My kids are grown, and it's just the wife and I and the dog, and so I don't really have any need for back seats. So here's the frame. I've built the whole thing out of 20 series extruded aluminum and various types of brackets and braces. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute, and I'll also show you how I cut this stuff. In order to keep the platform flat, I've added these legs. They'll go into the footwell section right behind the driver and passenger side seat. I built the platform in 2 square sections that I actually just butted together. They were out of the 2040 piece that I needed. They were out of stock, so I just used 2 20 series pieces and butted them together with bolts. Here's a look at some of the angle brackets that I used to tie some of the stuff together. That one piece going across the back was just added for extra rigidity, and it actually kind of filled in a gap you'll see once we actually put the frame inside. Attaching the plywood panels is actually the hard part. I'm going to show you how I use this 5/8 spade bit and this other size drill bit to make this hole and attach the panels. If you've never worked with extruded aluminum, I'll show you what these are. These are called T-nuts, and I used a flange nut and a washer to kind of complete the assembly. So here I'm putting the washer down in the hole. The T-nut comes up through the bottom, and I just kind of thread on the flange nut just a little bit there. Another one of the difficult parts was getting the nut to be flush, so using the spade bit to get the hole just right. There you can see the T-nut, what it looks like on the bottom side. So here I'm just going to test fit a piece, and I'm going to show you how it slides in here. So basically you just put the T-nut down in the channel, and I think this was like an 8mm nut, and you just tighten it up a little bit. And the way the T-nuts are designed, it kind of locks into place once it gets tight enough. So with the T-nut firmly down in the channel, it's a really secure connection, especially once you put a bunch of them in. I used birch plywood because it was actually the only thing I had on hand. You could definitely get away with using something cheaper. You can see here how I've kind of lined up the 3 panels. I'm actually going to end up making a 4th panel to make up for that gap in the middle. Like I said, these were just scrap pieces that I had on hand, so I had to cut them in a way that made sense. Once I get all the panels in place, I'm going to cover it with this general purpose indoor-outdoor carpet and some glue. Here's what the frame looks like when it's in the back of the truck. This is just a test fit. You can see how the middle piece there is sitting on top of those 2 brackets I showed you earlier. I cut some pieces of hardboard to put underneath of the slats in the back just to kind of spread out the weight a little bit more evenly. In this shot, you can see how the legs of the platform help it stay flat across the uneven sections. It took a few times taking the panels in and out, cutting them down a little more, or sanding them to get them to fit just right. I'll probably add some support to this wing section because right now there's nothing holding that up. If you put any weight on that, it might actually break, so in the future I'll probably put some support under here. Here's a shot of how this extruded aluminum works and how you can get fasteners into it. So here's a hammerhead nut or a T-slot nut, and you can see how it just fits perfectly down into that slot. So you can either slide them in from the ends, or you can put them in from the top and they twist into place. They have a little mechanism that kind of locks them into place the tighter they get, and then you just put nuts on top of them. So you can see that they're very secure. Once you get them tightened down, they're not going anywhere. So here I'm just going to show you some of the brackets that I used for this project. So this is just a right angle bracket that just holds two pieces together with T-nuts. Here's another right angle bracket, but this one sits on top of the extruded aluminum. Here's a T-shaped bracket if you're going to butt two pieces together. What else do I have in here? There's what the right angle bracket looks like by itself. Here's a piece of aluminum. This is what it looks like when it comes shipped by ZYL Tech. I'll put a link down in the description where I get all this stuff. I use a 10-inch chop saw for cutting the aluminum. The blade I have is for cutting hard metals. So here I'm showing you how I've got all the holes cut for the T-nuts and washers, and I've got all the hardware put into place. I used, I think, 9 nuts for the rear panel total. The right blade and taking it nice and easy to cut through this stuff, it cuts through it like butter, but it is pretty loud. So here's a look at the platform with the rear panel in and carpeted. I used a piece of angled aluminum just as a protective piece of trim there in the back. Everything's glued down, and I used some carpet staples where I needed to on the edges, but not too many of them. And I held in this piece of aluminum with T-nuts. I stuffed the edges of the carpet down between the platform and the plastic covers that cover the wheel wells. That way, in the case that it vibrates, the edge of the wood doesn't scratch up the plastic. It's not really easy to find a place to tie down the rear part of the platform to keep it held down, but I'm going to show you how I did that later on by using the factory tie downs. Here you can see how the centerpiece of the platform is bolted down to the factory tie down brackets. With this kind of platform, safety is always a big concern for me, so I'm going to show you what I use to tie down the platform in different places. I use this, I don't know what to call it, aircraft cable with these little crimp connectors to get things attached so that the platform wouldn't move around in the case of a wreck. So here in the front, I used a piece of the aircraft cable and tied it down to one of the factory bolts that used to hold the seat in, and it's super duper tight. I did this on both sides of the front part to hold it down, and it's a really solid connection. Alright, so here's what the finished product looks like. I got the front panels in. It's all tied down with the aircraft cable. Everything's carpeted, glued, and trimmed with the angle aluminum. I kind of screwed up with some paint there in the middle where the two pieces join together, so just ignore that. So one of the features I focused on for building this platform is I wanted it to be very low profile, so I had plenty of headroom in there if I was using this for sleeping or if I needed to carry a bunch of stuff back there, and I think it turned out pretty nice. You know, some people might ask, why didn't I just get a Tacoma or something like that, but I actually purposely bought this truck to do this, to build this kind of platform for camping. There's a little bit of room underneath here for soft stuff, small bags or clothes. You can see with the seats scooted all the way forward, there's a bunch of space behind the seats that I could use. I could either extend the platform out with some portable folding pieces to get some more headroom while sleeping back here, just to fill in that gap, or just use it for, you know, storage, maybe for some water tanks or something down in there. Not really sure what I'm going to do there just yet. This is with the seat scooted all the way back. You can see I can still use this pocket, and there's still a little bit of room back here so the seat doesn't rub. Here's what it looks like up close on the edges, just to show you, you know, what kind of fit I have down, you know, in between the door. Now that I've got it all built, I had to invite the general inspector in to see what he thought of the build, since he's going to be camping back here with me. So here's a shot with the refrigerator installed, so you can kind of see how much space is in there. It's still pretty roomy, about the size of a twin-size bed on the one side. I still get to use the factory tie-downs there to hold the refrigerator into place. I'm gonna have to work on this part. It's plenty of room to access the refrigerator, but it doesn't really open all the way, so it might make it hard for like a one-handed operation. So you might ask, why sleep in the back of your SUV? In my case, I have a rooftop tent and I have a ground tent, but I usually only use those if my wife's coming with me or if I'm camping with friends. In the case where I'm camping solo, it's nice to be able to leave straight from work on a Friday, head to the backcountry, find a piece of BLM land somewhere, and just crash in the back of your SUV at night. And then you can wake up early the next morning and make the most of your weekend, either going four-wheeling or hiking. I hope you enjoyed this build video. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks for watching. So here's a follow-up to the platform build. My wife bought me this nice memory foam mattress, and we cut it down to a width to fit back here. And I've been using blankets, but I'm going to try the sleeping bag tonight. It's a little tight. I got to figure out something over here with the vent for the refrigerator. It's kind of blocked. It's the setup. Kind of hard to see without the doors open.